The Minnesota Vikings finished the 2024 season with a 14-3 record and made the playoffs for the second time in 3 years.
We strive to be better, to be greater.
Best door in the league, man. Better let somebody know.
Unfortunately, for the second time in 3 years, they were bounced in the wild card round, this time with a score of 27-9, in what was both a frustrating and embarrassing loss to the Los Angeles Rams.
Ball's out, picked up by Verse. Off to the races, and gone for the touchdown.
And despite how frustrating that loss was to the Rams, there was no chance anyone would have believed you if you would have said heading into the 2024 season that Sam Darnold would throw for over 4,000 yards, throw 35 touchdowns, and lead this team to 14 wins in his first and only year with the Vikings. As a Vikings fan myself, I was hoping for a 7-8 win season, and for 2024 first-round quarterback J.J. McCarthy to take over 5 or 6 games into the year. But as we know, that didn't happen because J.J. McCarthy unfortunately sustained a season-ending injury, and Sam Darnold and the offense got rolling, and aside from a few games, never looked back. But for as fun as the 2024 season was at times, as the team started out 14-2, well, it ended just as fast. The Vikings had 4 total losses in all of 2024, including the postseason, 2 of which were to the Lions and 2 of which were to the Rams. But despite winning 14 games last year, this team knew they needed help, and they knew they needed to get stronger, and the Minnesota Vikings had one hell of an offseason. And as long as J.J. McCarthy is not a net negative, the Minnesota Vikings are going to be a problem. And in today's video, we're going to break down the 2025 Minnesota Vikings. If you could like the video before we start, I would really appreciate it, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video by discussing who the Vikings brought in free agency and who they lost in free agency prior to the NFL draft. And one of the biggest things that we discuss on the channel is teams' intentions entering each and every offseason. You can do the math pretty quickly as to who is contending for a Super Bowl and who isn't, and whatever you may think of the Vikings and ultimately J.J. McCarthy doesn't matter because internally, the Vikings think they are in a Super Bowl window. GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah wanted to move on from Kirk Cousins, and ultimately the price tag that comes with Kirk Cousins, so we could have a young quarterback on a rookie scale contract. And the Vikings went from having $70 million in dead cap money in 2024, which ranked 5th in the NFL, to having just $12 million in dead cap money in 2025, which ranks 27th in the NFL. There was also a big question entering the 2025 offseason for this team, and it was whether or not to keep Sam Darnold and to try and run it back for one more year. Ultimately, they did not bring him back, and that was of course the biggest loss this team had in free agency. We'll get more into the losses they had in free agency in a minute, but they ultimately brought back corner Byron Murphy, who had 6 interceptions last year and made his first career Pro Bowl. Now, I'd be lying if I said I expect Byron to have that type of year again in 2025, but Minnesota brought him back on a 3-year, $54 million deal with just under 35 being guaranteed. And as we know, corner is a very volatile position in the NFL, and what this means is the Vikings are protected if this signing does not work out. And we've mentioned this countless times on the channel, but NFL teams are a lot smarter with how they handle free agent signings than they were in years past, and this is where Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is really good, is bringing in good free agents. They knew the interior offensive line had to be addressed, and they also brought in Will Fries, a guard from the Colts, and Ryan Kelly, a center from the Colts. Fries was having a good 2024 season before unfortunately suffering a fractured right tibia in Week 5, which prematurely ended his season. Minnesota gave him a 5-year, $88 million contract this offseason, with 44 being guaranteed, and they gave center Ryan Kelly a 2-year, $18 million contract. Kelly has also battled injuries throughout his career, but the biggest thing Minnesota knew they needed to do this offseason was to build a wall around J.J. McCarthy, and that's exactly what they did. They also needed a legit second running back, and they traded for 2024 49ers leading rusher, Jordan Mason. I was really surprised Minnesota got Jordan Mason for a 27-pick drop back in the 2025 draft from pick 160 to pick 187, as well as a 2026 6th-round pick, but they did. And despite how good the 2024 Vikings defense was throughout most of last year, there was one part where they struggled at least consistently, and that was interior pass rush. Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel were very good at what they did last year and are 2 of the best players in the NFL, but they can't do everything. So Minnesota brought in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave to rush from the interior, and why I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to be a problem this year is they knew what their holes were entering the 2025 offseason, and they addressed all of them. This is not an exaggeration to say a 14-win team got better this offseason. Now, we'll get into the quarterback discussion part later in the video, but the biggest loss they had in free agency, aside from Sam Darnold of course, was Cam Bynum. Bynum is a really solid player and was a very fun player to watch over the last 4 years, but he was offered a $60 million contract by the Colts, and the rest you could say is history. They also lost Daniel Jones, edge Patrick Jones, and released former first-round center Garrett Bradbury. The biggest wild card, of course, will be J.J. McCarthy replacing Sam Darnold, but I do think this team got better in free agency, and the defense for Minnesota is going to be extremely fun to watch this year. But first, if you're looking for a mattress designed to help improve your sleep, your quality of life, and is also conveniently shipped to your front door for free in the United States, look no further than today's sponsor, Bear Mattress. Make sure to head to bearmattress.com/analysis and use code analysis to get 40% off your mattress plus 2 free pillows. Bear is a premium fiberglass-free mattress designed to upgrade your sleep quality, and again, it's conveniently shipped to your front door for free in the United States. Now, admittedly, I was nervous about the idea of a mattress showing up on my doorstep without ever testing it in store, but there's two big reasons as to why I really love working with Bear. One of them is, of course, that Bear knows everybody has different preferences in sleep positions, so they have a sleep quiz to help find the best mattress for you that will help remove all of the guesswork. And the other one that made me feel really comfortable to work with Bear was they have a 120-night sleep trial, so you have over 3 months to determine whether or not you love the mattress, and they also have financing options and flexible payment plans. It's been a couple of months since I received my Bear mattress, and I absolutely love it. And speaking of sleeping on things, I'm definitely not sleeping on the Vikings. I mean, J.J. McCarthy, Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel. You get the point. We're a very good football team, definitely not sleeping on the Vikings. But we did mention the sleep quiz to try and remove guesswork from buying a mattress, and it asks questions like whether you are a side, back, or stomach sleeper. Personally, I'm a side sleeper. And it also asks whether you like a soft, medium, or firm mattress. Personally, I'm a medium guy, as I don't like to feel like I'm sleeping on a feather, and they matched me with the Elite Hybrid Medium, and the Elite Hybrid Medium has the Universal Comfort, which balances strong support and comfort to achieve refreshing and restorative sleep. And if you were wondering, my girl Meadow also enjoys the Bear mattress. And if you don't believe myself or Meadow, well, Bear just ran a survey with over 300 recent customers, where 82% said they saw an increase in quality of sleep with their new Bear mattress, which is why 95% of those customers said they would recommend Bear to a friend. I love my Bear mattress, and I think you would too, and if you head to bearmattress.com/analysis and use code analysis, you'll get 40% off plus 2 free pillows, and that's better than what's currently being offered on the site, so check them out while you can. Once again, that's bearmattress.com/analysis, using code analysis for 40% off plus 2 free pillows. And a big thank you to Bear Mattress for sponsoring today's video. Now, for the Vikings defense this year, this is a unit that's absolutely loaded. This team finished first in defensive passing DVOA last year, second in total defensive DVOA, and first in defensive rushing EPA per play. They were the only team in the entire NFL last year to force a turnover in every game, and not surprisingly, they led the NFL in turnovers forced. And when you look at every level of the defense, there's playmakers. Jonathan Grenard had 80 pressures last year, which ranked third in the NFL, and Andrew Van Ginkel had 49 pressures while playing over 200 snaps in coverage, and both players finished with double-digit sacks last year. And like we mentioned during the offseason moves part, Minnesota did not have a great interior pass rush last year. They were led by veterans Jihad Ward and Jerry Tillery, and while Harrison Phillips has played for the Vikings for a few years now, he's more of an athletic nose tackle than a guy who gets after the passer, and for reference, his career high in pressures is just 23, and his career high in sacks is just 3. He's a very good player, he's just not a pass-rushing defensive tackle. So for Minnesota to go get both, Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave were great offseason moves. If neither Allen nor Hargrave work out, then again, Minnesota is protected from a financial standpoint. And sure, they'd have to pay some dead cap money in the worst case scenario, but like we do with other teams who sign high dollar free agents, I ask the question, are the Vikings not going to be able to pay anyone because of the Jonathan Allen or Javon Hargrave contracts? And the answer is no. This organization does a great job of paying their guys and early. Both Christian Darrisaw and Justin Jefferson are taken care of, and so is TJ Hawkinson, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Brian O'Neill, and the list goes on. So while Jonathan Allen may not be the 30 quarterback hit guy he was with Washington back in 2021, and while Javon Hargrave may not be the 50 plus pressure, 11 sack guy he was with Philly in 2022, especially coming off of a torn tricep, you know what they probably are going to be? an upgrade. And having these guys, along with second-year player Dallas Turner and Gabriel Murphy, get after the quarterback with all of the blitz packages and everything Brian Flores is going to send at opposing offenses every week, good luck. Because one of the biggest differences from last year to this year is the addition of corner Isaiah Rodgers. Now, by himself, Isaiah Rodgers doesn't personally make this defense go from a great defense to an 85 Bears or 2000 Ravens defense, and I want that part to be clear, but what limited this defense last year, aside from the interior defensive line not being able to get after the quarterback, was a 34-year-old Stephon Gilmore. Brian Flores couldn't call as much man coverage as he wanted, and the defense gradually wore down as the season progressed, and Isaiah Rodgers allows him to do more of that. So when you look at this defense, what is the weakness? There's a case to be made for corner depth, of course, but the front seven is easily one of the best in football. Blake Cashman is a very good linebacker, and Ivan Pace is a good blitzing backer who can chase guys down in space too. As long as the offense does not set these guys up for failure, and barring health of course, they're going to be one of the best defenses in football. You can also have the discussion about safety play, especially with a 36-year-old Harrison Smith, but Theo Jackson is a solid player, and so is Josh Metellus. The 2024 Vikings defense finished not just top 10 in a lot of categories last year, but top 5 in a lot of categories, and they got better from last year to this year. And when projecting the best defenses in football in 2025, the Vikings, along with the Eagles and Broncos, are right there in that discussion. And the bottom line is, this is an elite unit. Now, when we take a look at the Vikings 2025 rookie impact, I would be shocked if their rookie impact is not one of the lowest in the entire NFL, mainly because they only had 5 draft picks, with 3 in the top 200, and ultimately only 1 draft pick in the top 100, which of course was first-round pick offensive lineman from Ohio State, Donovan Jackson. Donovan Jackson, to me, was a really solid guard prospect, and a player that I think will be a plug-and-play for not just a year or two, but hopefully the next 5 or 6 years. In terms of his ceiling, I do think he is somewhat limited, but I do think he is a floor-raising player, and that's one of the biggest things that the Vikings needed along their offensive line, not just for a year or two, but really the past 5 or 6 years, honestly 7 or 8 years along the interior offensive line, because that was one of the things that the Vikings struggled with really throughout the entire Kirk Cousins tenure, was interior offensive line play. So to be able to finally have a good interior offensive line, which of course is led by Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, and Will Fries from left guard to right guard, is a good sign of things to come. And then of course both bookend tackles in Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill. I think Donovan Jackson will have his couple of rookie moments at the beginning of the 2025 season for sure, and there was one play in the preseason game, in the first preseason game against Houston, where Donovan Jackson didn't look great, but I think he will be okay in the long run, and he of course is going to have the most rookie impact of any player. Now, with Ty Felton, the third-round receiver from Maryland, he was the final third-round selection in the 2025 draft, there is a chance for him to come in and produce, especially with Jordan Addison being suspended for the first 3 games of the 2025 season, and he's also going to be the kick returner, or at least he's projected to be the kick returner for the 2025 Vikings, but I wouldn't expect all that much from a late day 2 selection. And I do want to say that I think that there is a reality where Ty Felton is maybe a wide receiver 3 for this team in 2026, depending on what Jalen Naylor does next year in free agency. But in terms of what we should actually expect from Ty Felton in 2025, outside of a kick returning role, I wouldn't really expect all that much, and it's because of the players that are going to be in front of him. Obviously, you have the best receiver in football, and then Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, and then Lucky Jackson, who is also probably going to make the roster, and you can see pretty quickly that there's not going to be that many targets for Ty Felton in his rookie year. So I think it is fair to say that if Ty Felton is going to have any sort of substantial rookie impact, we're going to know really by week 4, and if he steps up in the first 3 weeks of the 2025 season. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins was the Vikings' 5th-round pick, and he's a tweener from Georgia, and the biggest thing with Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins is he has the ability to kick inside and get after the quarterback in pass rushing situations from an interior defensive line standpoint, while having the versatility to be able to set a hard edge in the run game, whether it's 7 or 9 tech in the run game, and have somebody like Andrew Van Ginkel or Dallas Turner, again in run situations, play beside him to, again, kind of set that hard edge or redirect a running back inside. But when you ask the simple question for a 2025 2025 Vikings team preview, not a 2026 or 2027 or 2028 Vikings team preview, how much impact will Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins specifically have this year? And I would say the answer is going to be not a lot. And in some ways, the 2025 Vikings rookie impact is going to be from one man, and that is Donovan Jackson. That's kind of the reality when you only have one selection in the top 100. And I will be honest, I did not, or at least I wasn't the biggest fan of the Vikings draft class, and I gave their draft class a C during draft weekend, which was in the bottom 5 of all 2025 drafts. So for Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins specifically, there's probably not going to be that much rookie impact, because when you ask the simple question, if you are Brian Flores, who would you rather have out there in a 3rd and 8 situation get after the quarterback from an interior pass rush standpoint? Either Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins or Jonathan Allen or Javon Hargrave, and we kind of all know the answer to that question. Now, the question that we just posed for Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, of course, applies to 6th rounders Kobe King and Gavin Bartholomew as well, and kind of especially Gavin Bartholomew, because while the Vikings are going to run a lot more 2 tight end sets and 12 personnel with TJ Hawkinson and Josh Oliver, they are each paid a hell of a lot more money than Gavin Bartholomew, and I really kind of hope that Gavin Bartholomew does not receive that much playing time in 2025, because that means that either TJ Hawkinson or Josh Oliver go down with injury, and we hope that does not happen. So, in some ways, from a sheer rookie impact standpoint, Gavin Bartholomew is naturally going to be limited, and the same concept applies to Kobe King, though I do think Kobe King will be a solid special teams player for the Vikings, and unfortunately I do think Kobe King is also a player that in some ways was born in a wrong generation, where if he was born 20 or 25 years earlier and was coming into the league in the earlier mid-2000s, he's kind of one of those old school thumper linebackers with the traps, almost up to the ears, just one of those guys that really are really just rocked up thumper linebackers that set the tone. Unfortunately, he's a little stiff-hipped, and he's not as, free-flowing as linebackers in today's era. He's kind of a chase-and-see linebacker, if you will, and that's going to naturally limit what his ceiling would be in today's era, but he should be a key contributor in special teams, and again, we go back to the Vikings only having one selection in the top 100, which, of course, was Donovan Jackson, so naturally their rookie impact will be a bit limited. They did sign a couple of undrafted free agents I really liked, in offensive tackle Logan Brown from Kansas, and a pass rusher from BYU and Tyler Beatty, who may make the final 53-man roster, but the Vikings rookie impact for the 25 class will be one of the lower, or at least in the bottom 10 of all of the 2025 draft classes for all 32 NFL teams. The 2025 Vikings offense. I'll be honest, from a creator standpoint, this is the toughest team preview offense that I've had to do for any of the 2025 team preview series. There's been a part of me for a month and a half that sat back and wondered, how am I going to talk about the Vikings offense without A, seeming too biased, or B, getting too excited about the team this year, and especially with a first-round quarterback, and ultimately my team's first-round quarterback since Teddy Bridgewater, since I was a sophomore in high school all the way back in 2014. And whenever we talk about the 25 Vikings offense, it of course starts with number 9, J.J. McCarthy. And the thing is with J.J. McCarthy, he is going to be the youngest starting quarterback out of any NFL team in 2025. He has a tremendous work ethic. He also has several great physical abilities that not every quarterback has. He has an absolute cannon of an arm, as he threw the ball over 60 miles an hour during the pre-draft process. And there were times at Michigan where, I don't want to say that, Jim Harbaugh doesn't know what he's doing. That's the absolute last thing I'm saying. But there were times where they specifically leaned on the run game, and in turn that kind of made it appear that, J.J. McCarthy is not that good of a quarterback and he doesn't have what it takes, and all of those narratives that you hear, and honestly still to this day see regularly on Twitter about how JJ stinks, he's going to limit this team, JJ McDonald's, he's going to be a bust, whatever, you get the point. So I've sat back for a month and a half and wondered, okay, how are we going to talk about this in a reasonable manner? But guys, I'm a Vikings fan, but I don't think it is an exaggeration to say, when you look at everything that's going to go into JJ McCarthy's situation for his first NFL start, when you look at Kevin O'Connell, an absolutely elite play caller, even if you are a Vikings hater, I think you have to acknowledge how good of a play caller Kevin O'Connell is, along with a franchise left tackle in Christian Darrisaw, the rest of the offensive line revamped, although Brian O'Neill was there last year, a multiple-time Pro Bowl right tackle, by the way, along with the best receiver in football in Justin Jefferson, who is a Hall of Fame talent, along with TJ Hawkinson, along with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. And then, by the way, which also benefits JJ indirectly, because he's not going to have to deal with things that Joe Burrow has to deal with every single week, with putting up 35 points just to have a chance to win one of the best defenses in football. I do not think it is an exaggeration to say that this is one of the top 2 situations ever for a quarterback to walk into their first NFL start and start an NFL game. The other, to me, would be 2018 Patrick Mahomes with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid and everybody else that was that was on that team. Now, having said that, that does not mean that 25 JJ McCarthy is going to be 5,000 yard, 50 touchdown 2018 Patrick Mahomes. We are talking specifically about the situation, and I do want that part to be clear that we are talking situation only before JJ steps onto the field in his first NFL game. So when you ask the question of what should we actually expect from JJ McCarthy in 2025, I mean, I'm not dumb to sit here and say, hey, he's going to throw 42 touchdowns as a first-year player, especially with a team that's going to prioritize running the football with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason that unfortunately escaped them down towards the end of the season last year because the offensive line was wearing down. Aaron Jones is an older back as he was drafted all the way back in 2017, and you started to see the effect of the 17-game season on Aaron Jones towards the end of the 24 season, and that was one of the biggest reasons they brought in Jordan Mason was to share the workload. So again, I would be lying if I expected JJ to come in and absolutely tear it up. And then there's also the fact that, again, he has not played an NFL game to this point. However, there is a reason that his passing line's touchdown for the year is 24.5, and you have players like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson at 28.5 and 27.5 passing touchdowns, just 3 and 4 more touchdowns than JJ McCarthy, and those are your back-to-back league MVPs. Now, obviously, each Josh and Lamar's, their running ability plays a big part in their game, and that will inevitably bring their passing touchdown total down a little bit, but that speaks to the situation that JJ is entering in 2025. Now, admittedly, from a playing style or playing results perspective, I do think that it will resemble a 2023 Jordan Love in the early parts of the 25 season where there's going to be some kinks to work out. There's going to be growing pains, and there's a reason they are called growing pains to begin with, because you have to go through those moments and you have to go through those times where coverages are going to rotate. JJ's going to throw what looks to be a pretty bad interception early on, and I fully expect that. Probably in week 2 against Atlanta when he's playing a secondary that features guys like AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates, and a rookie that I really like in Billy Bowman of the Atlanta Falcons. There's going to be moments where JJ looks bad, and people that want to dunk on JJ, especially early on, are going to get those moments. But from a 2025 projection, assuming he plays all 17 games, and of course Justin Jefferson plays all 17 games, and Jordan Addison plays the remaining 14 games after he comes back from suspension, I don't think a 3,700 to 4,000 yard, along with 25 to 27 passing touchdowns, is out of the range for McCarthy. And I would also say that there's probably going to be 10 to 12 interceptions. And one underrated part of McCarthy's game is his ability to extend the play or to pick up those, 7 or 8 yard gains when it's 3rd and 5. And we actually saw that in the preseason game against the Texans. JJ is entering one of the best situations ever for a first-time starting quarterback. And obviously, as a Vikings fan and of course as an NFL analyst, I can't wait to see how it plays out in 2025. Now, for the 2025 Minnesota Vikings running backs, the biggest thing that we're going to have is it's not going to be just Aaron Jones and then a carry here or a carry there from Ty Chandler or Cam Akers. Jordan Mason is going to be a legitimate part of the offense, and I would like to think that this is going to resemble the 2023 Falcons offense, and in that year, that was Bijan Robinson's rookie season. Bijan had over 270 total touches, and backup running back Tyler Algier had over 200 touches, and while I wouldn't necessarily think the Vikings are going to give Aaron Jones 270 touches in what is now his 9th NFL season, I do think it's going to be a lot more balanced than what it was last year in a season where Aaron Jones had over 1,500 total yards, but also had over 300 total touches. So if you are a fantasy football player, I know sometimes I get fantasy comments about, hey, I like this or I like that. I really wouldn't draft either unless it is in a best ball league, because there's going to be a lot of inconsistency within the 2025 Vikings running backs, because there's going to be games where Aaron Jones probably only has 8 or 9 carries, and in that game, Jordan Mason may have 15 or 16 total touches, and you get the point. There's going to be a lot of diversity between the two, and that they're going to each have productive years, so that when week 17, week 18, and ultimately the playoffs roll around, each player is as fresh as they possibly can be at that point in time. For the 2025 Vikings receivers, it of course starts with Justin Jefferson, who I and a lot of other people think is the best receiver in football, and this is a player that in what some considered a down year still had over 100 receptions, 1,500 yards, and double-digit touchdowns, and this was with Sam Darnold as his quarterback, who was not viewed the way that he is now 1 year ago. So if Justin Jefferson was able to do that in a down year, I still think the production will certainly be there for him this year, and even though he has what is essentially a rookie quarterback or a first-year quarterback, I would like to think that JJ is going to lean on him a lot when it's hell or high water, so I still think the targets are going to be there, and I would be pretty surprised if Jefferson doesn't have another 100 reception, 1,400 plus yard double-digit touchdown season, assuming he stays healthy, of course, because that's what you have to assume whenever you are discussing preseason projections. Now, with Jordan Addison, he's a good wide receiver too. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll be able to eclipse the 1,000-yard mark this year because he is missing 3 games at the start of the season, but this is a player that is actually leading his draft class in receiving touchdowns through 2 years, so he knows how to find the end zone and he knows his role within the offense. He's a really solid wide receiver too, and the Vikings' first 3 games are at Chicago, home against Atlanta, and then home against Cincinnati, so it's not the most difficult part of their schedule, where later in the year they play the Eagles, Chargers, Lions, and Ravens in a 4-game span, which would obviously be a lot more detrimental if Addison was missing those 4 games, so the Vikings are going to have their hands full in the first 3 games without Jordan Addison, but I do think that they can still manage to go 2-1 during those first 3 games. TJ Hawkinson was coming off of a torn ACL in 2024 and MCL as well, and I was a little disappointed with how he played, especially towards the end. I was hoping for some more signs of progression that I don't think we saw towards the end of 2024, but in camp he has looked good so far, and I would expect him to be back to that 700 or 800, hopefully 900-yard tight end this year. And the biggest thing with the 2025 Vikings is, as long as they don't beat themselves with how good the defense is, with how improved the offensive line is, and of course staying healthy, this is going to be one of the best teams in football. Now, admittedly, yes, I don't think they're going to be able to repeat the success they had last year, and I don't think they're going to have back-to-back 14-win seasons, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they win 11 or 12 games this year, and if things go their way, maybe even 13 games for the 3rd time in 4 years. But I do think that they will, in theory, decline from a 14-win season from last year to this year. Ultimately, I think the 2025 Vikings team ceiling is an NFC Championship game appearance. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe, as we recently hit 200,000 subscribers, and guys, I really cannot thank you guys enough for the support, and again, I appreciate that you guys enjoy watching, and Skol Vikings as we head into the 2025 season. A big thank you to Bear Mattress for sponsoring today's video. I absolutely love Bear Mattress, cannot recommend them enough, and until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.